What's poppin', people? It's Dante, currently standing on top of the Philadelphia Museum of Art steps here in Philadelphia. And I was just thinking about burnout and street photography and what this all means to me, and yeah, how we can overcome burnout in street photography, essentially. I think that this feeling of burnout is very interesting. I think that burnout occurs when you are attached to the outcome, and what this means is you're attached to the photographs you're making. You're attached to whether or not you come home with a good photo, whether or not during your walk you're seeing interesting scenes unfold, whether or not you even receive praise or someone views your image. And I think that these things are very superfluous, as street photography is all about embracing failure. If I were to tell you that only 1%, if I were to tell you that 99% of the time you head out with your camera, you are going to fail. You are going to come home empty-handed. Would you still practice street photography? If the answer is yes, and you embrace failure openly, well, I think it is inevitable that you will overcome this feeling of burnout, and you will embrace the process of making new pictures. Where the outcome, whether or not you make a good or bad photo, is quite honestly out of our control for the most part. As much as we can determine how often we practice, where we position ourselves in the world with our camera, I think that it's still out of our control, because life is spontaneous. The life of the street is out of our control. We're working in a way that is very fast-paced and spontaneous at its core. And because of that nature of street photography being so random, embracing entropy and the chaos of life, I think we must completely, genuinely, completely detach from whether or not we make a good photograph. And so what this means is, my radical way of framing things, my radical way of thinking about this is, would you keep taking photos? Would you keep going out there and making new pictures if you never saw the results? For instance, for the past 2 years, coming up in November 24th, 2024, that'll be my 2-year mark of embracing my new process of black and white. I've been culling my photos each day when I come home, making selections and backing them up. But I haven't gone through the work at all, basically, for the past 2 years, and decided, oh, this photo's good, this photo's bad, this photo should be keeper, this is not, and that is actually extremely liberating, because I've never given it this long. I've never taken this long of a detached from the photos. I've never taken a 2-year hiatus from deciding whether or not I'm moving towards something interesting or not. And this is the most liberated, most motivated, and most inspired I felt ever in my entire life of practicing street photography for a decade. Where detaching from whether or not you make the photo, the good photo, I think is the first step to overcoming burnout. Where I think it's inevitable to feel burnout when you're dependent upon the results. It's inevitable that you'll feel burnt out by street photography if you need somebody to see the work. But what if you were to continuously photograph for the entirety of your life, to never see the photograph and make the light of day, to never strike a print, to never see it in a show, to never see it in a book, to never even really look at it and sit around and enjoy it? What if you just kept shooting and moving forward? That's a very radical idea, but I think an interesting one to contemplate, because for me, the whole joy of street photography is the life affirmation of clicking the shutter. And so by embracing the process of clicking the shutter more and remaining in this sort of spirit of play, this flow state of production, I'm essentially fueling myself with curiosity. And curiosity for me is the ultimate goal of a street photographer, right? When you consider curiosity as the marker of success or the goal to strive towards, well, then it makes most sense to hone in on that. where each day the goal should be to make new photographs. And when you detach from the outcome and you treat the next photograph as your next best photograph, you enter this stream of becoming, this flow state of production that I think is really critical to true improvement and true growth, where remaining stagnant, sitting back, culling through work, deciding what's good or bad, beating yourself up because you're failing so much, you know, this leads to burnout. But when you look at the next photograph you make as your next best shot, or just another, like, no matter how seemingly small or mundane or boring the photograph may be, it is a part of your evolutionary journey as a photographer, and I think worth championing, you know, where the next photo you make is your next best photo. And with this abundant mindset, you will enter the flow state. And this is where we want to be. You know, getting burnt out, to me, it stems directly from a lack of vitality and from a lack of curiosity. And in order to cultivate curiosity, you have to increase your vitality, right? You need better sleep. You know, you need to increase the strength in your muscles. You know, where I really do view this connection between weightlifting and photography, where the more that, or the less that you use it, the more that you will lose it, right? Think of, you know, weightlifting, right? You need to sort of maintain that rigor and discipline of lifting weights to increase and strengthen your muscles. And I think this is very similar to street photography, right? Where some days you might show up in the gym and, you know, you're a little bit more lowly in energy. Maybe you didn't get good sleep that night, and that's fine. That's normal. That's a part of life, and that's going to, you know, lead to that feeling of burnout. However, if you make the effort to show up in the gym, you know, to do a set of pull-ups, to do some push-ups, stretch a little bit, maybe just drink some water, and just like hang out for a second and like do something, I mean, that's better than nothing, right? And to me, the ultimate tragedy is stagnation. And I think even if you step out onto the streets for 10 minutes, for a literal walk down the street and back, or even if you're in your neighborhood and you shoot a photo out the window, or a portrait of yourself, or a landscape, or something that's a minute detail that you see, you know, just outside your door, you know, this to me is very important. You know, and look, burnout, another way that we get burnout that I might have somewhat discussed is being attached to platforms like Instagram, YouTube, or people viewing the work. You know, I think we, you know, if you were attached to a umbilical cord, through a umbilical cord to a mother that was smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, and eating McDonald's food, and you were just being fed poison constantly, like, wouldn't you want to reach for a pair of scissors and cut it and get that umbilical cord off of your body? Yeah, probably. And so I think deleting your Instagram, it's critical, because you're being bombarded by these distractions, whether it's people viewing your work or whether you're viewing other people's work. And the point is to just make more work, you know, forget about the audience completely. Think about longevity and how we can go forward for decades to come. And I think that that mindset with longevity and legacy at the forefront, it derives through embracing the failure, embracing the suck, embracing the fact that you are going to fail consistently every single day for the most part. And yeah, just completely detaching, completely letting go, and yeah, just entering the flow. I think that yeah, I think that's the path to overcoming feeling of burnout. Maybe something I said helps, maybe not, maybe that's okay too, but I'm just sharing my thoughts and what works for me. Hopefully it'll work for one other person. I highly suggest to simply find ways for you to play the game that brings you more joy, What happened is I became burnt out through lugging a camera on my neck. And so by removing this barrier of using a bigger camera system and switching to a compact camera system where I essentially always have a camera with me, this genuinely is a big deal for me and is something that has helped me overcome my burnout. Can't help but just share that simple idea. I know it's about gear, but yeah, maybe there's something about that helped me, and maybe it'll help you. Yeah, I highly suggest the Ricoh, because yeah, you can bring it everywhere and there's no more excuses. And I think it's kind of hard to be burnt out from photography when you just simply always have a camera with you and have an opportunity to press that damn shutter more.